So now I'm going to add the baking powder to the flour. The baking powder is one small bag, which is around 11 grams. And the flour itself, I use type T45, which is often used for cakes. And the amount of flour is 200 grams. So I put first my flour into the sift drum. The sift drum is this tool that I'm using that looks like a drum with a sieve inside. And I just tap, and I always sift the flour to be sure that there are no impurities, and so that it's easier to mix the dry mixture with the wet mixture of the dough. Here we go. And the sifted flour, I always have it on top of a baking parchment paper. The reason is because it allows me to pour it easily into the bowl, which will have the wet mixture. Okay, so now that I have sifted the flour and the baking powder, I will be melting the butter and the chocolate mix. So I first add the chocolate to my butter. I make sure that the flame is on the lowest because I don't want it to burn or to melt too fast. And then I just wait until it melts. It's going to take a while, and meantime, while this is melting, I will add the sugar to my eggs and to mix it so that they are ready for the dough. The butter is 200 grams here, and the chocolate is the dark chocolate is 99 grams, while the milk chocolate is 51 grams. So in total, the chocolate is 150 grams. And so now, while this is slowly melting, I will now go towards the sugar and egg mixture. Okay, so as you can see, I have already put my eggs in a bowl, which is with a stand mixer. We use a KitchenAid, and I've put the K-paddle. Then the 4 eggs approximately weigh around 200 grams, and the sugar is also 200 grams. So I add my sugar to the eggs, I bring this down, and I start mixing. The mix of the sugar and egg should mix until the mixture is completely white. After it has become white, the mixture, I will add the flour and baking powder mixture. Right now I'm on the speed of 4, and it's beating quite fast, as you can see. So now I will show how the chocolate and butter mixture looks. So while the sugar and egg is mixing, my butter is already melting, and the chocolate is also melting. I am now stirring it so that it combines. I wait a bit longer so that it continues to melt. So as you can see now, the egg and sugar mix is still beating quite fast. It's still in the kind of yellowish, but it is a lighter yellow than before. And however, it still has to beat for a while. So now I'm again here with the chocolate mixture. Now I continue to stir. to make sure it's completely melted. And once it's completely melted, I will stop the heat. There's still some butter that needs to be melted, but the chocolate is completely melted. In the meantime, I will stop the heat because it's already very warm, the mixture, and just by stirring it, it will continue to melt. So the system I used is a bain-marie. So bain-marie means when you have a pan which has a bit of water, and then when you heat up the pan, it creates a steam effect. And with the bowl on top, it means that you will be able to melt your chocolate without burning it. And there are a lot of recipes that require that you don't burn your mixture, so bain-marie is quite effective in those times. So with the egg mixture, I now speeded it up to around 6 so that it fastens the mixing. And it's almost blanche whitened. It's going in that direction. And now that it has become whitened, I will now add the mixture of flour. And this I will do it slowly at a low speed so that it doesn't go everywhere. So now as you can see, I have the flour in the parchment paper which I have sifted on, and I'm slowly adding the flour. And by doing so, now I've added all the flour. By doing so, it's gonna create a homogeneous mixture. I can now speed up a bit the speed. Make sure that all the flour is mixed. And while that's mixing, I'm gonna check on the chocolate mixture. So here's the chocolate mixture. And as you can see, it's homogeneous. So I'm going to remove it from the pan. The pan I no longer need. And I will make sure to dry the bottom of the bowl because water and chocolate don't like each other. So now I dry quickly this, and there we go. Well, it's like this. I'm back with the egg flour mixture. I'm slowing down the speed because I have to add now the chocolate mix. I will stop it temporarily and slowly put it on one and incorporate the chocolate. And stop temporarily. I'm quickly gonna lift the stand-up machine so I can pour the rest. I'm using a rubber spatula to pour add the remaining of the chocolate butter mixture. There we go. And then put this back down. I start mixing again. When you incorporate the chocolate, it is possible that sometimes there are some droplets that go on the side. This is okay, it can happen. You just wipe it off. And then last thing you add is your raisins. Or if you go according to the recipe, it would be chocolate chips. I use raisins. I like to have a nice combination of chocolate and fruits. So while that's mixing, slowly, stop this and lift, and then I use the same rubber spatula I had before to make sure I get all the dough from the K spatula of the stand mixture into the bowl. I use the same spatula because it's anyways with chocolate, so it's not gonna do a big difference. You are welcome to use another one if you prefer, but I like to use the same one. So now I remove this from here. The mixing is done. And here we have our dough. So I just do a quick stir still with the spatula to make sure it's homogeneous. Yep, it looks quite nicely homogeneous. It's always important to do a final turn like this with a rubber spatula, or because sometimes with the stand-up mixers you don't get all the way to the bottom, which can be sometimes frustrating. But for now, we have a homogeneous mixture. And this mixture will now go into the mold. Okay, so this will be the principal mold for the cake. Although, because I will not fill it completely to the top, because it may rise, I have a spare mold in case I have extra dough. Also, you can grease your molds with butter. But I use a greasing spray for baking, and it's quite effective because you don't have to get your hands greasy in the process. So now I'm going to first get a tray so I can put these on top, these molds, because it will be otherwise very difficult to get them in the oven. So I'm going to use a perforated tray, and first I will pour into this main cake mold. And let's hope that I just need to use this one. So in the process of pouring, from the looks of it, this cake mold will be enough. So make sure to scrape all the dough from the bowl to one side, to the side where you're gonna pour it in. Your fingers may become a bit chocolatey in the process, but that's fine. It just means it becomes yummy. And there we go. So I'm gonna scrape a bit on the edge, make sure it's homogeneous. I'm gonna tap a bit to make sure it's flat. Then with a piece of paper I remove any of the dough that got on the edge, because you don't want it to burn. And the dough that got onto the tray, because you also don't want that to burn. So now that it's in the mold, it will now go into the oven. Okay, so I have like very small amount of time until it's ready. To check if your cake is ready, you can use a knife. I use like a skewer, which is used for, you know, sometimes barbecuing, or you can use a needle. Just make sure that it's clean, and if you do use a needle or a barbecue skewer, make sure you only use it for your pastry. And by needle, I'm talking about those long knitting needles. So it has ringed, the timer. I am now going to open the oven. As you can see, the cake has risen quite nicely. I make sure to protect my hands. Now I stab it, and it is still quite liquid. So I'm gonna leave it for a bit longer. But it shouldn't be this liquid, it should be more solid. So yes. And when it's ready, I will take a photo, and yeah. So hope you look forward to it, and enjoy.